Can you really get as close to a deer from a ground blind as a tree stand? Every year, more hunters are using ground blinds to get a face-to-face experience with deer. But is it as easy as setting up a blind and taking a seat?
It was once a fad, now it's mainstream.
It really is a deadly way to hunt.
I'm Steve Bartella.
I'm Gordy Cron.
I'm Mark Kaiser.
I'm Dan Schmidt, and this is Deer and Deer Hunting TV.
A traditionalist will still say you have to be in a tree, have to be so many feet off the ground to not only hide yourself from that big whitetail, but also to get the best shot. A traditionalist, yeah, you might not change their minds, but for any other deer hunter, a ground blind can be deadly and result in more meat for the freezer.
I like ground blinds because not every property is the same. Some properties just don't have trees that you can hunt out of, especially trees in good hunting areas. Ground blinds give me the option of being mobile, of hunting creek bottoms that I can't normally hunt, hunting field edges that I can't normally hunt, and especially hunting spots where I know deer are coming and I know I can get closer than I would with any tree stand.
Okay, how many of you guys have been out in a tree stand? The wind is blowing 40 miles an hour. It's 20 below zero. It's not a comfortable thing. You don't have to deal with that in a ground blind. You're going to have protection from the wind. You're not going to have protection from that cold, but you know it's the wind that really saps the body temperature from you. So the ground blind is going to provide some protection from the elements.
Steve Bartilla is one of the most recognized land managers in the industry. His preferred style of hunting is from a ground blind.
I love ladder stands when they're nice and brushed in well compared to hunting on the ground, but you darn right, when I find that spot, I find that location that I know I have to be here, there isn't a tree there, I'm going to put up a ground blind. I'm going to put up a ground blind and I am going to be effective because years teach you there are tips and tricks to maximize their efficiency. Right off the bat, break that roof outline. How do you break the roof outline? Whenever possible, when you've got a tree that's got these overhanging limbs, go in there, cut out a couple limbs, tuck that blind right up underneath it. Bingo, you just brushed in the roof. That's done. Then you work on the sides. Go ahead and you brush in your sides well. Now, the blind brushing aspect is done, but we're not done. The next thing you do is you clean off that ground floor. When I turn and move, I don't want noise like that. That is going to booger my hunt because remember, if all this plays out well, Mr. Big, he's standing there 15 yards away and wow, does that ever sound like a cannon just went off. So clean the debris off the ground blind floor. Next, if I believe Mr. Big's coming through right there, this is a very comfortable seating position because I'm watching where he's, I'm sitting like this. I'm sitting like this, I'm putting my bow holder right off my knee. Now when Mr. Big comes, all I have to do to minimize my movement is go like this, click my release, full draw, shoot. Camel. Camel is an awesome thing for tree stands. It's an awesome thing for stalking. It does not belong in a ground blind. In a ground blind, you wear black. You wear black gloves. You wear a black hood. You wear a black shirt. You disappear into the shadows. I'm down in Illinois on a property I manage down there. Our deer population is just stupid high. You have to remove does, otherwise they end up destroying the habitat. And one of the things I really like to do when it comes to shotgun hunting down there is hunt out of enclosed blinds. Either your elevated redneck type blinds or ground blinds. Now, Either one of them, when you're shotgun hunting, you can go ahead and tuck them in the spots you want, and it gives you that freedom, that relaxation. One of the things I love about ground blind hunting is you're right down there at eye level. And this girl, she cooperated perfectly. She walks right in front of the blind, and even I can't miss that shot. So I got one doe down, I got another tag to fill. The next morning I ended up heading into a different blind.
Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Mossberg, built rugged, proudly American. Nikon, the next generation in hunting optics. Cuddyback, more deer, fewer blanks. And by Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry technology. Apply, dry it, and go hunt. Up next,
there's a lot more to hunting ground blind than just slapping it up and crawling in to hunt. You're watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV.
This segment of Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Matthews.
I eat, sleep, and dream whitetails. That's my job. Every place I go, I set myself up. I don't rely on others. When I need to get into a spot, preferably I'll put up a tree stand, but when I can't, ground blind.
You know, a lot of people say, oh, I hunt public land, so I can't use ground blinds. Yes, you can. Portable ground blinds are great for public land, but you have to prep those areas. So it might mean brushing it into a certain area and then bringing the pop-up blind with you. Not nearly as effective as hunting private ground, but I've used them on public ground and they do work. It just takes a little bit of thought.
There are a lot of good reasons for hunting from ground blinds, and one of them is fear. And I can relate to this. I've got a mild fear of heights, and I know a lot of hunters who have an extreme fear of heights. So those hunters are not going to be comfortable in tree stands. I will hunt in tree stands because I know how beneficial it can be. But given the choice, I like hunting on the ground.
One of our primary goals here at Deer and Deer Hunting is to make the viewers, the readers, better deer hunters. This is one of those areas where, frankly, we think we can help, because so many people have it drilled into their head that they have to be sitting 20, 25 feet up in the air in order to kill a deer. That is not true. Ground blinds can really open the doors for you to hunt locations that you otherwise wouldn't. When you're doing them, when you're hunting out of a ground blind, make sure the windows in the back are closed. That's going to go ahead and cut down on the airflow, and that's going to give you an advantage you can't get up in a tree, because just simply by closing the back windows, which you have to do so you don't get silhouetted, it cuts down on airflow, and it makes it so that if you take odor control seriously, you have even better odds of a buck being able to slip downwind of you and never knowing you're there. All these little things make a difference. You add it up and you can become a better hunter. So I got one doe down, I got another tag to fill. The next morning I ended up heading into a different blind out on a point that's covering this remote food source, and sure enough, out walks another doe. She gets nice and perfect position. I think it was about a 60-yard shot at most. You know, again, a makeable shot for even a layman like me with firearms. If I hit her square in that shoulder blade, boom, we got our doe tags filled. We got our doe tags filled, and we got our freezer full of some darn good meat. I'll tell you what, the seasons that I kill a whole bunch of does, they are always by far my favorite seasons. Because after all this is about is going out there and having fun. And if you can't have fun shooting a bunch of does, feeding your family, feeding your friends, man, it's time to find a different sport.
I will be honest with you, I never thought ground blinds would take off to the levels how popular they are today, but people are realizing really fast how versatile they are, how much easier it is to hunt out of them, and actually it will increase their success in certain situations.
Think about taking kids out hunting. You know how much kids move around. Are you going to have a kid up in the tree stand with you and kill a deer? Maybe, probably not. In a ground blind, you can get away with a lot more movement. If you're physically disabled, that you cannot climb into a tree stand, you still have a very viable option for hunting whitetails, and that's hunting out of ground blinds.
Coming up next, here is a sneak peek of the top 3 things you should know about the 2017 whitetail rut. You're watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV. If you're an avid whitetail hunter, you know the rut is not that far away. Deer and Deer Hunting is widely known as the authority on not only deer biology, behavior, and research, but also as the #1 place to go for the reliable and accurate rut predictions of senior field editor Charles Alsheimer. Although Alsheimer's insights will be revealed in the next issue of Deer and Deer Hunting, here is a sneak peek of the top 3 things you should know about the 2017 whitetail rut. Number 1. The rutting moon is the key. Charlie Alsheimer has studied the moon's effect on the whitetail rut for more than 30 years. His observational research has been published in Deer and Deer Hunting annually since the early 1990s. Those decades worth of observations from across North America have revealed that peak breeding will not occur the same time from year to year. In fact, peak breeding can be as much as 10 to 14 days earlier or later than the previous year. So when the rut actually takes off and goes hot to trot depends on when the second full moon after the autumn equinox occurs. Alsheimer's research has also shown that the timing of the rutting moon comes within a day or two of repeating itself every 11 years, and reasonably close to repeating itself every 3 or 4 years. Number 2. The rut won't be a sprint. It's important to point out that the whitetail rut is an ebb and flow process that lasts approximately 40 days in a finely tuned deer herd. If the adult doe to antlered buck ratio is skewed heavily in favor of does, the process can be much longer. Based on his research data, Alsheimer has observed 3 distinct phases of the rut: seeking, chasing, and breeding. By the time the second full moon after the autumn equinox arrives, the rut's first phase, the seeking phase, is ramped up. During this phase, bucks are more active during daylight as they cruise their home range and beyond, going from doe group to doe group, searching for the first estrus doe to breed. This process can last upwards of 40 days in some areas of the country. And number 3, the rut will have a sweet spot. If you can carve out only 1 week to hunt this year, you'll be happy to know that there is a special time to hunt during the rut. A magical week to 10 days when deer activity is at its best. All things being equal, the rut's sweet spot this year will be from about November 2nd through November 12th in areas north of the 35th latitude. Throughout this period, bucks will be frantically rubbing, scraping, fighting, cruising their territory, and chasing nearly every doe they encounter. A key during this time is to keep an eye on weather patterns because fronts coming and going will enhance the amount of deer activity, especially if a cold front follows a warm front. When this occurs, buck activity will be off the charts. Charlie Alsheimer's detailed rut predictions will appear in the October issue of Deer and Deer Hunting magazine. Subscribe today at deeranddeerhunting.com. Coming up next, perfecting your setup in growing big and what you should be doing right now to get ready for the season. This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV. Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Thompson Center, America's master gunmakers. Analogics, protect your herd with the power of science. Get armed and deadly with Easton's FMJ arrows. And by 10-Point Crossbow Technologies. There is no substitute.
You hear it every year when you're talking to other hunters. You know, man, I was sitting out on my stand and this buck came out of nowhere. I've never seen him before. He's huge, you know, and there he is. And man, I either just missed or I got him. Where the heck did he come from? Well, to really understand where these bucks are coming from, we need to understand home ranges. Okay, the home range for a buck is on average about 640 acres. Now keep in mind we're talking 100% tendencies here. There's going to be exceptions to everything. But telemetry studies have shown over and over that a home range for a mature buck is right around 640 acres. That means that range is spread over far more than 1 mile as the crow flies most often. Now the next thing we need to understand is bucks do not spend equal amounts of time in their entire home range. All a buck's home range is the area that he is familiar with, that he goes to at times. Now a daylight core area is different. A daylight core area, a buck has one home range. That's it. Flip side, when it comes to daylight core area bedding areas, you know, they tend to have multiple daylight core areas. The buck's home range has to meet all his needs. His daylight core area? No. All it needs to do is give him a place to crash during the daylight. Now, why don't they leave their home range? Well, let's think this through for a second. If I know where all the food, all the water, all the does, all the protective cover, all the various exposures for ridges and hills, you know, be on that south side when it's cold, be on that north side when it's hot. If I know where all that stuff is, why do I want to leave that area for something I know absolutely nothing about whatsoever? Remember, this is all about survival for whitetail. By intimately knowing their home range, they're able to stack the odds in their favor for survival. When it comes to late summer, it's not a bad idea to go out and do some driving and looking at some fields, because that will help let you know that, you know what, that big guy over there, he just may come over to see me. Maybe I want to alter my standards for this year one way or another because of it. Maybe not. My advice, quite honestly, is shoot the first buck that makes you happy. This stuff's supposed to be fun. But understanding core areas and home ranges, you know, just helps us have a little bit more fun, because the more we understand about our prey, the more effectively we can set ourselves up on it.
You know, deer herd health is the rage these days. We're passing up bucks, we're planting food plots. We want to make the properties we hunt the best they can be for all the deer that are on there. Adding a mineral lick can take that to the next level. Make sure it's legal in your area. You don't want to do this if it's not legal, but in a lot of places it is legal because mineral licks are natural. Deer will get their minerals out of the ground no matter where they live, normally through the native vegetation, but also through seeps, near rivers, through creeks. They're going to eat the ground to get the mineral out of the ground. Adding a mineral lick to your property, like I said, is easy. Just a few simple steps and you can have one right now. The first thing you want to do, you don't want to run out and buy your mineral and just dump it anywhere. You know, dumping it on the ground is going to be a waste of your time and your money. First thing you want to do, put it in a known deer travel area. Converging deer trails, we have that here. It's perfect. Deer are coming through here already. They're going to find the spot quickly and they're going to start using that mineral lick. Second thing, and probably most important, is you want to have that mineral lick near a water source. If you have a pond nearby, a creek, a seep, even a puddle that will fill up after a rain, that's good. Deer will drink after they eat the mineral and digest those minerals more quickly and readily than if they didn't have that. What if you don't have water on your property? Not a big deal. Take a barrel, cut it in half, bury it in the ground. Make sure you clean up after yourself, but deer will use that as well. Just something that's going to hold a little bit of water that when deer are coming through there and they eat a little bit of that mineral, they can ingest it very quickly. All we have to do is take a rake. You don't need a rake. You can use a stick or whatever. You can use your foot, but you want to rake away all the debris, all the vegetation, and get it down to the bare ground as much as possible. Okay, so we have our site prepped. That's good enough. You know, maybe a spot about that big. You want to be able to have that ground, have that mineral leach right into the soil. Then you want to have a quality mineral that you're putting down. Find one that's proven, that works. Flavor enhancers help mineral attract deer. But the mineral itself, look for one that's formulated by scientists for deer, not for cattle, not for sheep, but for deer. There's a difference. Analogics is one of them. Deer are gonna find it and they're gonna get the maximum benefit out of it. So after we have our site prepped, we're just gonna take our mineral and we're gonna spread it through this whole area. The idea is to get it to leach into the soil. This isn't bait. This isn't, you don't want deer to come up here and just eat. They're probably not going to anyways because it's mineral. They're gonna just take a little bit of it. That's all they need. It's like you taking a daily vitamin in the morning. That's about the same thing for deer. And we're just gonna spread that into the soil. Now, if you have a spot where you have a creek crossing, that's gonna leach in there even better. But here, we have crossing deer trails, we have a pond nearby, and it's going to be just as good. So it's pretty much as simple as that. You know, you get your mineral down, you leave it alone, you let the deer find it, and you're going to be better off in the end with happier and healthier whitetails.